Hello, I'm John Ricciutti, and welcome to Faces of the Main Line. My guests today on Faces of the Main Line are Matt Marshall, an advocate of Radnor Township, Beth Connor, and David Falcone. What prompted you to want to be a part of the school board?
Well, I'm a former educator, and I have 3 boys in the district. I have always been a huge advocate for public education and supporting our teachers and meeting the needs of all of our kids. So pre-COVID, I was already interested in the board, and this was just kind of a springboard to get involved.
And David, yourself?
So I've been there before, John. I was on the board for 4 years. I guess it would be 4 years ago. I was part of the board's leadership at that time, and I have 3 children in the district and 1 who's going to be in the district next year. So it's important to me to be active in the community. I didn't think I'd be back again, involved again, but over the last 18 months, 2 years, I felt that it was important for me to have my voice heard. Again, on the board, I'm directly impacted by the decisions of the board, not just as a taxpayer, but as a parent. And so I feel that having some moderation on the board is important. And I thought I could serve that role. I thought I served it well last time I was on. So after talking with my kids and my wife and my friends, I thought it was time maybe to give it a shot again.
Before I get to Matt, you said something that I thought was insightful. You said impacted, something impacted. What do you mean by that?
So I think people get confused a little bit when they think about school board and school board candidates. They think, well, either I have kids in the district and so I'm directly impacted through that decision, or I'm a taxpayer and either I'm impacted or I'm not, and they don't understand the significance of what the board does. So a school board impacts everyone in the community, whether you have kids in the district or not. For me, I'm a taxpayer, so I'm impacted fiscally by their decisions, but I think more importantly, I'm a parent. And when a decision's made at the board level, it comes home every day to me. My kids get off the bus, they get out of their class, they come home, and I feel the decision. My wife and I feel it. We talk to our kids, we talk to their friends, and we see how decisions actually flow down through the system. And so that's the impact for me. It's my kids, it's every day, it's every night, and it's meaningful. It's meaningful to me, it's meaningful to my family and a lot of other families.
As we go on, I know you're Italian, I'm Italian. Don't bang on the table.
Got it.
Okay. Matt, you and I have had a lot of conversations over things, and I've invited you on because I know that you're a community advocate. So
yeah.
What's your input and take on this?
Well, I've been looking in the rear view mirror here for about 18 months. By way of background, I grew up in Radnor. I went K through 12 at Radnor schools. My wife and I moved away for a little while, and we moved back intentionally because we really wanted to raise our kids here, which we did successfully. And they were both K through 12 graduates, one in 2015 and one in 2017. So why is a guy who doesn't have kids in school supporting Beth and David and Laura and Bob? Because I really care about this community, John, and I'm seeing things that are a little bit disturbing in terms of divide, and we can get into that later in the program, but I just want to go on record to say that, through my own public service, whether it be the Planning Commission or Board of Commissioners, I know how government works well in Radnor, and I know how it doesn't work well. And I think over the last 18 months, particularly with the school board, I'm just not seeing things that make me feel proud to be in Radnor Township anymore.
Specifically, can you touch on that? Or
I think there has been a real strong political influence in the school board's decisions. Last year we had a rebranding where if you talk to anyone about the process, I think, the students in Radnor School District would be probably the most concerned about how that process played out. And I'm a parent, I don't have children in school anymore, I'm an alum. And to some extent, I don't think the school district really had anybody's good intentions in mind, except the political gravity of that, decision. So that's one of many things that we can talk about.
I ride around the community. I ride through the community. Well, before I get to that, how did Reimagine Radnor start? what what was the genesis of it? How did it evolve? Can anyone tell me that, or has it been around for a while?
No, it was a group of parents that started a group really on Facebook, which was called Reopen Radnor. And they were a group of parents that were independents, Democrats, Republicans. They weren't, worried about anyone's political affiliation. They all just believed that keeping kids out of school was wrong. And so they, formed a group to, talk to the administration and try to get our kids back. And through that, they grew into Reimagine Radnor, which is just a group of parents that are not political, that believe that, the last 18 months, was handled poorly, and that our kids should have been prioritized and in the classroom. And so now they have decided to get active in support for new candidates. And it's not party related. It's just 4 new candidates, to take the place of 4 people, that were previous or that are now on the board, who are running again for their spots.
So I think Reimagine Radnor is reflective of Radnor as a whole. So it is a bipartisan group, but it's a group of interested and active residents. I think it's one of the things that makes Radnor is we are a community of people that are engaged and that are active. And this is one group that has seized on an issue that was very important to them back at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was getting kids into school. And obviously that's an important issue to me, and it's important to Beth, it's important to a lot of people. But as that's evolved, the group has evolved, like many other groups in the community. This is one that has a voice now. They're using that voice to try and impact change on the board. And they've endorsed Beth and I and 2 other candidates, Laura and Bob. And so, they are at the moment a very engaged and driven group, and they're moving for change.
Can I just add one more thing?
Because I was going to say something.
Well, so Reimagine Radnor has been probably the impetus for me wanting to get involved. It's bipartisan. Many of the people who have sort of engaged at that level have come to it from very different political persuasions. But at the end of the day, they just see what's happening at the school board level and they want to see change. And I think, with Beth and David here, I couldn't be happier with the candidate choices. Truly, I think these are really genuinely good people who are parents of kids who are at Radnor High School or Radnor Middle School. And this is what we need in the community. We don't need distant voices talking about things that really don't have any relevance, to what the underlying curriculum is. What is, the culture at Radnor High School or Radnor Middle School or the elementary schools, and really what are we trying to provide to the students? And that, I think at the end of the day, that's what Reimagine Radnor is all about. Let's just focus back on what's important, and it's providing focus to students.
They've been able to give parents a voice, and what I've heard through, my campaign is parents just want a voice. They want to be heard, then they want transparency. And I think that Reimagine Radnor has been a great place for a lot of parents to go to find their voice.
And it's a young group, John. And I say young, not in its membership is young. I'm sure there are young members of the group, but it's young insofar as it was born out of the pandemic and bringing kids back to school. So it's in its infancy as a group in the community, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve as issues in the community evolve. And like any group, and I think we'd be blind not to see it, there are people that support Beth and I, or Bob and Laura, and maybe don't necessarily believe in every message of Reimagine Radnor. And again, I think that's part of what makes Radnor unique, is we are a community of wildly different voices and wildly different opinions. And Matt and I can sit at this table together and know that we've disagreed on other issues with respect to Radnor, but can find commonality around certain issues. And this is just an example of a group of diverse parents finding commonality around an important issue to them. And it's also an important issue to some of the candidates running for school board. So I think it's reflective of Radnor as a whole, and I think it's a good thing for the community.
Can I just mention one other thing? Sorry.
It's your show.
No, I know it's not my show, but I want the parents out there to realize that this is what Radnor's about. It's not about defining yourself in a certain, demographic or a certain party. The reason why people move here and want to raise their kids here is because Radnor is an open exchange. It's always been open. When I was in the high school in the 80s, we had an open campus in 9th grade. And guess what? Some kids made mistakes, some didn't, but we learned. And we learned from our teachers and our administrators and our school board. What I'm seeing today in 2021, it's not the same culture. And I want to bring it back for future generations. I hope my kids move back here and raise their kids here. And that's how strongly I feel about it, John.
One of the things that I was curious about is, as I ride around, there's actually two things. During the pandemic, St. Catherine of Siena School stayed open, and they had classes all the time, but yet Radnor High School was closed. And I thought that was curious to me as an observer. The other thing that I thought was interesting as I ride around, historically when you'd see elections coming up, it was always, if they're Democrat, it was Democrat. If they're Republican, it was Republican. But curiously, since I got to know you three, and I've known Matt for years, is that your signs are mixed in with people from other parties. So there's an element of division somewhere that I see, that there are people that are supporting you that aren't of your, maybe not be of your party, or vice versa. And I think that's very telling, because people just aren't going, they're saying there's something wrong here when that happens. They're just not going to party line. Do you see that as well?
I do. I do see that, and I think it's actually, I think there are two types of divide in the community. I think the community as a whole right now is facing political division, and I think that's a dangerous division. But I also think we're facing a divide on vision that allows for people to support candidates across parties. And one of the things that I'm most proud of, John, was when I served on the board, it was a board that was not 9-0 for either party. It was 6-3 at one point and then ultimately 5-4. And in that space, we were able to do good things. And it was a divided board politically, but in decision making, we were able to work together, come across that divide, and move the district forward. I've been really, really humbled by how many people may have a Democrat sign on their lawn and also have mine, or not have mine and have a Republican sign. So I appreciate the diverse thinking there. It's important. It shows that people are doing what's most important in this election, which is thinking about the local issues and voting for the individual candidate and not voting for the party. What would be most dangerous for Radnor as a community is to think about what's happening in Washington and think you can change it with a vote in the box in Radnor for your school board candidates, for your commissioner candidates, for your treasurer candidates. We're voting on issues that are important to Radnor, and with respect to our election, the school board election, we're voting on issues that are very important to our children, our taxpayers. And so we have to think locally when we vote on these local elections. And I think that's what you're seeing when you see a divide in signs. You're seeing people shifting from that national way of thinking to starting to think about what's important here in Radnor. I think that's the most important.
Well, and when I decided to run, I decided that I want people to vote person, not party. So I wanted my own yard sign, I wanted my own material, because I really think that the school board should not be political and that people should educate themselves on each candidate. I wanted a Democrat to feel comfortable to put my name in their yard along with a Democrat's name in their yard. You'll have 4 votes, and you don't have to say, I'm just going to vote Republican, I'm just going to vote Democrat. You need to be educated on each person. Vote for the person, not the party. Take the politics out of our school board. And I think that will bring, civility back. That will bring transparency back. That will bring some balance and some moderation back. I think, I've been disappointed when I've had people say, Beth, I support you, but I'm afraid to put your yard sign in my yard because I don't know, my neighbor's not going to be happy about that. That has to stop. That has to stop. We need to, respect each other as neighbors, as, other parents, as, other residents in the community. And, vote for the person, put your sign up, be proud, educate yourself on the people. And let's just take this hyper-partisan off of local elections.
You mentioned transparency. I heard it several times in our discussion. Can you? I don't, like Matt, I don't have children in the school, so I don't know about transparency. So tell me what your thoughts are about that.
I think everything, within that I'm hearing is that parents feel like they don't have the information, that they're not communicated with, that whether it's what's happening in their classrooms, with their children are being taught, with what's happening with the budget, where money is being spent. I think it's just an overall theme when I talk to parents, is they want transparency and they want a voice. So I think a lot of people, if you know the information, a lot of times you feel better about it. We all do. And so when they feel like something happened, without their knowledge, people get defensive, they get upset, they automatically assume the worst. And I think a lot of arguments could be, squashed if there was transparency on all levels.
Matt, I know you're anxious to say something. I could feel it.
I know I have a lot of things to say, and I am really serious about this with the voters and the taxpayers. This should not be any kind of a movement in Radnor toward a political aim. We're talking about a school board here, right? And a few of the commissioners are going to be elected, and we really have to start thinking about the people over the party. And John, you've known me; I've been part of the party here, in Radnor for a while. But now I'm reaching out and I'm seeing, some good candidates, like Lisa Browski, who's done a good job as commissioner, and I support her, as well as Dave and as well as Dave and Beth go. You have to think about the people here, right? Because these are the people who are making decisions who ultimately impact your children, and so. I just like to say, there's no drama on the school board anymore. There's no retribution for people who want to vote cross-party. You need to vote for the people, because ultimately the people who are making the decisions and who get elected are influencing your children. And that's the most important thing we have as parents to watch out for. And as taxpayers. I mean, I want to believe that my money is being spent wisely. There's good stewards at the school board level, because we're just doing a $29 million renovation of the Prevost Field. That's a lot of money. I mean, David and I work in the same industry. That is a major project, and that's something that has to have full attention of the school board. We shouldn't be talking about other things that aren't relevant at a time when we're going through a capital program that's about to invest close to $30 million in the high school.
What's something irrelevant?
Well,
you don't have to say.
John, I just think, look, I'm a guy who grew up here. I knew many people who didn't go on to college. I knew many people who stayed in Radnor and raised their kids here, and they associated with things that had importance to them. They went to the football games every Friday night. They supported Radnor High School because it was an inclusive community. There was not a political divide. And over the last 18 months, and we can go back through examples, there's been a very strong partisan division. Look, my wife's a Democrat. I think I can speak pretty freely on a House United, and she's always been a Democrat.
Can I add one thing, John? Sure.
It's your show.
I appreciate that. Following up on what Matt said, and I think it's important. So in Radnor, I think you can be anything. I think you can be a Republican, you can be a Democrat, you can be an independent, and you can still be the exact change agent or voice for a community that wants you to be their voice, irrespective of any of those designations. And that story, when I was elected last, somebody came up to me right after the election and they said, wow, we were expecting to get one type of individual based on your party affiliation. And that's not you. We were so wrong. And we are so grateful for what you are. And that's what this is about as a school board. You can be an independent thinker and be designated as a Republican or as a Democrat, and you can do good things for a community as a whole, an entire community, irrespective of your party affiliation. And I think that's what people need to realize, and they can see it. They can see it in their elected officials all over this township. People that either act in a political way or do not. And I'm very proud of the record I had when I was on the board. I know Beth is proud of the things she's done in the community. Same with Matt. And they're not tied to our party affiliation. Mm-hmm. They're tied to us, as people. And that's what I'm asking. In a local election, you can get to know your candidate. They're your neighbor. They're your coach. They're your classroom aide. Get to know them. Find out who they are. That can happen in a local election in Radnor. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do. And if you don't like who I am or what I stand for, it's very easy to not vote for me then. But I think it's much easier to find the answers to the questions you're looking for in local elections.
Incidentally, if I used the word revolutionary in my discussion with my guests, it was my word and not theirs as it pertains to reimagine Radnor. How does the school board have a relationship with the Board of Commissioners? Is there a relationship? I don't know. I only know the commissioners through Matt and the other commissioners that I've interviewed over the years at the channel. But does the school board have an interaction with them? Again, maybe my word, with the commissioners?
Yeah,
or are you an independent body?
I can speak to that just because I do so much work in front of the Board of Commissioners and I was on the school board. They are independent bodies, but it is critical that they work together. They're two very important agencies in a township, in a small community. So although they are technically separated because they're independent of one another, they are two governing bodies of the two most important, I would say, agencies in the township. They're both taxing authorities, they're both decision makers, and their decisions affect everyone in the community. So if they're not talking, they should be, and if they're not working together, they should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beth, you said you were an educator. What I failed to ask you. What did you?
I'm a former public school teacher with an elementary education degree and a special ed degree. So I have, a very soft spot for, making sure that every child gets, free and appropriate public education. I believe in every child. I believe that every child can succeed. In Radnor, we have, a district where we have the funds to make sure that can happen. We just need to foster an environment that is nurturing to all of our kids, that our parents feel welcome, that our parents feel that they can stand side by side and work together, no matter the political party. We need to have a path for all of our kids, not just the top 90%. We need to make sure that there's a safety net for everyone, and that everyone, when they graduate, has a next step.
Do you think there's a lot of peer pressure with Radnor students?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Are you referring to peer pressure as far as their political leanings, or just peer pressure in general?
Peer pressure in general.
Oh, I'm sure. I think there's always been peer pressure, whether it was when I was in school or our kids are in school. I think it's heightened now because we're modeling to our kids how to behave, and they're watching us. And I'm seeing a lot of that behavior then trickle down to the high school, to the middle school, and to the elementary school, where kids are talking and discussing things in a manner that they've seen adults now discuss it, which is not a really productive conversation, and how to respect each other, learn from each other, and find common ground. I think that one thing moving forward is that the board needs to do is make it an environment that all voices can be heard and respected.
That leads me to the question I wanted to ask next. Was that I see a lot of things on social media, and a lot of them I don't believe, and a lot of them are criticisms about the teaching methods in Radnor. And either of you don't have to answer that question, but there's a lot of criticisms out there about some of the teaching methods in Radnor.
John, can I take that up? Just because I know from my own experience at Radnor High School, back then, whether it was Sam Holt or, Jim Balk or others, it was all about critical thinking at a young age. It was about giving the kids who were ninth graders the tools to think for themselves. Now, fast forward, now we're, almost 40 years later. What's happened is, and this is something that's come to me very recently, we have just gone through a global pandemic. In the United States, we lost 700,000 people last year to COVID. In World War II, we lost 450 service people, right? Think about that. 700 last year, 450 in World War II. What's happening now is there has been a very distinct impression by certain people that we can go away from critical thinking, that social media is going to help us develop our own thoughts and our beliefs. It's not happening for your children. Your children need to think about things themselves. They can't be influenced entirely by their parents or their parents' peers. So Radnor had a very strong history of teaching critical thinking. I'm not so sure it exists today.
And I think this goes, you were, talking about, teaching. And I think one thing that we need to realize is that with the transparency piece is that teachers, want to partner with the parents. Parents want to partner with the teachers. Our teachers, have been through the ringer the last 18 months. We asked them to jump through hoops that they had, were not prepared to jump to. And a lot of our teachers, just took it and ran with it. So I would like to see, there's so many divisions that are happening. And then I think the school board could, be the uniter to bring, parents and teachers together and have open dialogue and communication and transparency and support. So it's not this me against you. We've all been divided up into these little groups, and it's not working, it's not healthy, and it's not who Radnor is.
Yeah, I think...
You have the last word.
Great. Never happens. How much time do we have? So one of the things I'll say, and I honestly believe it, and I'm sure all three of us do, one of the things that makes Radnor the most special, I think, is the quality of our teachers and the ability of our teachers to work with our students and with our parents. Without the level of teacher that we have in Radnor, we are just another school district. So we have to remember that. And it's incumbent on the board to engage with our teachers, to engage with our administration, and to engage with our parents, to make sure that we provide the opportunity for our students to learn in the best possible environment. They're going to have the best resources. That's what makes us Radnor. And they're going to have the best teachers, because that's what makes us Radnor. It's incumbent on the board to pull everything together and make sure that that happens. I'm not sure that type of dialogue, that type of union is happening at the moment, but it can. We've seen it happen, and we're Radnor because we're a special place. And I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that all of these things will make us Radnor.
Thank you. With Matt Marshall, Beth Connor, David Falcone. Don't forget to vote on November 2nd. And for all you ladies, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Please get a mammogram. Thank you.